Now, on the academic improvements based on last year's test scores, we're very clear in the school district. The number one thing we need to invest in are highly qualified, well-supported, stable teachers. My number one focus is not tutoring, it is not mentoring, it is not technology. It is highly qualified, well-supported, stable teachers over time. Tutors, mentors, technology all just kind of supplement and kind of provide some extra supports to students and teachers. But teachers are number one.
Welcome. You are listening to Building the Black Educator Pipeline podcast, where we talk to real people in the real struggle, doing the real work. I am your host, educator activist Shana Terrell, dedicated to the lifelong struggle of freedom and liberation for my people. Today, we are talking to Dr. Tony Watlington, Superintendent of the School District of Philadelphia. So he joins us today to discuss really about building a diverse teacher workforce and also how we can make the profession more attractive to our young people. Welcome, Dr. Watlington. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you again, Shana Terrell.
Good to see you too, Dr. Watlington. We are super excited to have you. And shout out to all my co-conspirators out there watching and listening. I do believe we have a treat for you today. So, Dr. Watlington, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself. What can you share with us about Tony Watlington? Past, present, who are you? What do you do?
Okay, since you set these high standards, talking about real people doing real work, let me get right into it.
You are one of those people.
In addition to being a dad to three very fine young men who are making their way in these United States, I want to let you know that I'm an avid history buff. I am possessed of tenacity when it comes to creating life-changing opportunities and outcomes for our young people, particularly in public education spaces. I came here having served as superintendent in the Rowan Salisbury schools in North Carolina, which was the state's only renewal school district, where we had a waiver from all the state rules relative to budget, curriculum, and school calendars, etc. And it made me think about how should we dream bigger and differently. Because if we want to get different outcomes for our kids, particularly Black and brown kids, what do we need to do differently in order to drive faster improvement? So that's kind of what makes Tony tick. A little bit about me. I love good food. I'm a runner. And then finally, I'll just say that I'm really interested in working in partnership with 19,000 employees and all the children and families of this city to make our city the fastest improving large urban school district in the country. That's Tony Watlington in 2 minutes or less.
That was quick. You didn't have to be that quick. You could have told us a little more. But I'm so curious. What made you move on this way up to Philadelphia? What attracted you to Philly?
Well, a couple of things. This is the nation's sixth largest city, and I see Philadelphia as one of those fine international cities, akin to Paris and Cairo and Johannesburg and Lagos and Tokyo, etc., New York, Chicago, LA. And so it's a very fine place, has a very fine tradition. It's a historic city. This whole experiment, as we like to refer to it, in American democracy all started here with that signing of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Philly served as the first nation's capital as Washington, D.C. was under construction. So I really believe that the unfinished work of those two historic documents is ensuring that we educate all children to be able to participate in what we have in this country, the world's largest economy. And so I just think that's really, really significant. And I might also mention there are some outstanding eateries and great food here, culture, art, music, you name it. And so it is one of the world's finest cities, and I'm sure glad to be here.
Well, thank you for shouting out the food, because I love to get some good eats up in Philly. Good place to eat. A lot of great places.
And you can add to my recommendations.
I will. So, Dr. Watlington, you are a superintendent of a school district, but of course, you didn't just start there. Please share with us. I'd love for our guests all the time to tell us, how did you start your journey into education? What inspired you to be an educator?
Well, let me first say what inspired me to be an educator, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my journey. When I was in school, I had a middle school teacher Her name was Miss Gregory. And I'll never forget it. She recognized that I was really interested in history. Uh, and at the end of the year, she gave me an award called the Woodman's of the World History Award. Now, I don't know if I had the highest average. I don't know if I was the best debater, but she just kind of cued into that innate interest I had, and helped me to believe that I had a talent. I had a family, although I was the first in my family to go to college. I had a family that was very, very supportive and really valued education. And so I got into this space first as a bus driver. I drove bus number 229, which was my first job ever. And I also served as a school custodian. So to this day, when I go into schools, I like to see if they're clean, if they look good, because they
Mm-hmm.
say something about what we value.
Yes.
Shiny floors and manicured grounds and the like. Uh, and so I began as a teacher. I was a history teacher, focusing on high school history teacher. Thought I might have some interest in going to law school. I'm so glad that I stuck with history. I went off and so I did my undergraduate work at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, the home of the Aggies,
A&T. Yes.
the largest HBCU in the country, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't then, but it is now. And did a master's in American political history. Thought I might want to do a PhD in history and maybe teach history. But for me, history was always more of a verb and an action, not just studying the past. I wanted to know, what can we learn from the past? How do we use the past to help us to be better in the future? And long story short, over time, I moved into a lot of different roles as from a teacher to assistant curriculum coach to assistant principal. Served in several roles in the district office to include chief strategy officer and regional superintendent in a district, and then came here some nearly 30 years later.
Love that. So history is your thing.
History is my jam.
That is your jam. And is high school
Yes.
your jam?
Yes. I was an
Okay.
elementary principal and I was a high school principal. I was a principal 3 times, actually, of
Okay.
one elementary school and 2 high schools.
But high school is your jam.
It's where I spent most of my time and cut my teeth. Yes. So I'd say that,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Because we have a lot of folks on this show be like, I'm not high school, I'm elementary, I'm not either, I'm middle, like I'm a middle school person. So we always try to see like, what's your jam? Where do you line? So you're more aligned with the high school. You like
Yeah,
Gordo?
I would think so. I would think so.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We all have to find our niche. If you're going to, if you ask, if I decided next week I want to go and either give a principal or a teacher a day off because I want to come do their job, I'd probably I'd probably land in a high school first, but I could find my way in a middle or K-8 school as well.
I love that. I love that. Wow. So I'm listening to your journey and I'm listening to the trajectory, the bus driver to the custodian to the teacher. I really, really love that. I mean, we have a lot of people in education spaces who haven't seen all the jobs, and definitely bus driver and custodian. I think most folks could agree. At times, those are like thankless jobs. Um, Folks don't always appreciate the work that your local bus driver does or appreciate the work that your custodian does. So for you to have done those jobs, you have a very unique perspective on how you look at an entire school district. And I love that. I really do.
Well, let me just say, while the research is clear after 50 years that the single most important factor in whether kids grow academically or don't grow academically is a highly qualified, well supported, stable teaching force over time. Principals, highly qualified, well supported, stable principals, are second in the research. We know that all these other jobs add value and that teachers and principals can't do that work without bus drivers getting kids to schools, the building engineers, the building cleaners, the counselors, social workers. So it's helped me it sensitized me to the importance of all the people who work in a school setting and how to A, show our value for all of our employees, and B, how do we make sure that we provide for their own development and professional development. That's really important.
I love that. And your experience allows you to connect the dots within the ecosystem, right? Like
Connect the dots.
everybody can't do that at all. So I love that. So one of the things I know you coming here that to Philly that you have stressed is prioritizing building a teacher pipeline. And
Yes.
really, like as we get down to people going into education, it's down by 50% nationally. Philly 66%. Like just a lot going on right now, especially post COVID. What strategies are you implementing or are being implemented by the school district to address the deficit locally?
Well, absolutely. You hit it on the nose when you talk about the teacher pipeline being down by 50% nationally, 66% here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In fact, over the past 8 to 10 years, the number of teacher licenses that were awarded in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in a public or private university went down by 71%. That is a real serious situation for us. So, in the School District of Philadelphia, we're doing several things to address that. One of the initiatives that I'm so proud of, it started before I came here, but we have increased this initiative, is our paraprofessionals pipeline initiative, where people who work in our schools already, they know our schools, they know our students, they know our communities. We're paying for them to get their teaching credentials at a number of institutions, to include uh, Cheney University, one of the first HBCUs, LaSalle, Temple, College Unbound are our partners. And the key is that these individuals are getting their college certifications, their teaching licenses debt free. Number two, whereas the city of Philadelphia has an imbalance in terms of a majority students of color population and a majority teacher population that's primarily white and female, and we value all of our teachers and we need every one of them. The paraprofessional initiative has a majority of Black and Brown participants. That's a good sign that we can make a dent in making sure that we get more diverse teachers in front of our students, because our students need to see teachers that look like them. Lots of research out there that says kids do better. And as Mayor Parker often says, our children can't be what they can't see. And I agree with that. That's so important. There are different entry points from the different universities, but between Cheney, LaSalle, and all the partners, we're really pleased with where we are so far with that initiative. Second, I just want to mention that we intend to open a teacher prep middle college high school in this city in partnership with the Center for Black Educator Development. Mr. Sharif El-Mekki, our good friend and collaborator, is at the table with us, as well as the Community College of Philadelphia. Stay tuned. We intend to identify middle grade students who raise their hand, and we will encourage them to pursue a noble career in education. And we're committed to finding the funding to pay for every single one of them to go to college debt free, to become a part of that, become a teacher.
Yes. So one, what I want to say for both of those programs, one of the main things that you're doing, which is we all know, especially in low income communities, is a barrier, is eliminating the financial hurdle for people to get into the teacher profession. You would think at the rate that teachers are paid, right, that it wouldn't cost that much to be in that profession. To become a teacher is an extremely expensive ordeal, especially when
Well,
you think about college. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you're right. In fact, I just was reading an article recently, two articles, one out of New York, where some districts are making, I think, a $100,000 baseline teacher salary in some parts of New York. And I just read this morning in some publication that one of our charter networks here in Philadelphia is increasing the base teacher salary to $60,000. The base teacher salary in the school district of Philadelphia right now is around $53,000. You know, teaching is one of those rare professions, Ms. Terrell, where as supply goes down and demand goes up, salaries don't change significantly. Everywhere else that I can think of in the free market, supply and demand has a major impact on salaries. And we need to figure out how to do better about paying much more competitive wages to teachers, particularly the most effective teachers.
How do you feel like we can go about doing that? Like, what are some strategies to really impact teacher salaries?
Well, one, I think that we've got to really make the public in this city, in this Commonwealth, and across the nation to really wrap their brains around this declining teacher pipeline. We've got to say to the public, while there are many alternate ways to learn how to become a teacher, I know many great teachers doing that. We still need to invest more heavily in colleges of education, and we need to provide scholarships for smart high school students to go to college and get their teaching degrees debt free. Um, we also need to make the case that the majority of the teaching population should not be emergency licensed teachers. Now, there's nothing wrong with emergency licensed teachers. Don't get me wrong. We've got some folks who are doing some really good work in this school district, and I want to thank them publicly. I also want to note that very few colleges that I'm aware of in the United States have a provision to have emergency licensed physicians, emergency licensed accountants, social workers, psychologists, even CPAs and accountants. I'm not aware of an emergency license provision. We've got to be careful that we don't just say, well, any and everybody can teach because they can't. And one of the things we learned during the pandemic, those of us who are parents, I hope, is a greater appreciation for the people who go in the classroom every day and I teach our children.
Absolutely. You make a really, really good point. And I don't want to you talk so smooth and so nice. Like it's a good thing. Like you have a very soothing voice. But what you
Okay,
said, you do. But what you said, you
thank
really
you.
hit the nail on the head in terms of other professions and emergency licenses. And the reason why that's so important, I always lift this up on this platform. Like you said, somebody wouldn't just emergency license a physician. So why
Correct.
would we emergency license teachers when they're dealing with the most important things, like the gentle minds of young people and how delicate that is?
Absolutely. That's why I want to underscore with these 100 plus paraprofessionals who, in partnership with the Philadelphia Federation for Teachers, the PFT, want to give a shout out to President Jerry Jordan. He's been a humongous, huge, supportive collaborator and partner at the table with us, as well as the colleges that I referenced earlier. All of those 100 plus paraprofessionals each year are getting a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania teaching license and credential. That's really important, and we're really proud of it.
That's very important because one of the things that I feel like what you're focusing on, especially with paraprofessionals, are some of the things that are lacking in some of our current universities, like well detailed on the job practice as well as study. Right? These people have already been doing the job, so they come with a certain amount of experience when you're talking about paraprofessionals. But being like really intentional about making sure that they are content specialists, know their craft, have the proper credentials to be in front of children, that's super, super important. And I think that they appreciate, number one, the support, along with the elimination of the financial barriers and being in programs where they don't have to jump through hoops and hurdles to find out how do I get my license? What do I have to do next? Because that too, in many states, is a complicated process as well.
I agree. I'd also just add that as our teachers learn to become teachers in colleges of education across the Commonwealth and across the nation, it's really important that colleges of education continue to retool themselves so that they're prepared to teach our teachers to teach the children of 2024,
Yes, Dr.
not
Watlington.
not the students of 1954,
Yes, Dr.
and
Watlington.
certainly
Yes.
not the students of 1854.
Hello.
There is a difference,
There
and
is.
that means one, we've got to know our content, and when we think about the early grades, in particular, teaching reading. A lot of colleges of education are having to retool themselves to focus on the science of reading, as Sharif El-Mekki knows very well. And they used to teach something called balanced literacy that came out of Columbia in New York some years ago. But we're changing the way we teach. We know now that the way we've been teaching early grades reading is not appropriate for a lot of our students. So science of reading is the way to go. And it's the reason why Mississippi has the fastest improving fourth grade reading NAEP scores in the entire United States of America. People are already surprised by that. So we have to change how we teach, prepare people, teachers, prepare us to deliver the content. We've got to help teachers to know how to manage classrooms and engage students in the learning. Gone are the old days of that old British model where you're getting straight rows and you just sit up straight, Shana Terrell, and you just listen to that teacher talk all day long.
With your hands
And
folded.
your back is hurting. You don't have any padding on that seat. You just sit there and listen. No, our young people have access to so much technology and AI and cell phones, and you cannot ban all that stuff. We've got to figure out how to use all that stuff in the classroom context where kids are used to a fast pace. And then we've got to help our teachers to really focus in on definitions of equity and how to know the learner and to really know and connect with our families and our cultures across the board.
Mm-hmm. You hit on some really, really hard points, meaning your comment, and I don't hear this a lot, right? But your comment is both balanced and student-centered, like being student-centric as well as teacher-centric, right?
Sure.
Helping people to learn how to teach the students of today, but giving teachers what it is that they need to be successful.
Absolutely.
A lot of
You
times,
support.
go ahead.
You feed the teachers, they'll feed the students.
Yes.
Take care of students.
Yes.
You don't,
they'll eat the children. Isn't there a book that's something like that?
I think I've heard that title before. Yes, I've heard that title.
For sure. So I love the balance you're given. I think one of the things that people think of, like, or question sometimes, is how do you recruit and then retain highly effective teachers, right? Because I think that in today's climate, people may feel like that's a scarce thing, right? Or if you're a highly effective teacher, because it's so scarce and the population of teachers is so down, right? Like you can go where you want to go and get a contract. So what are you guys doing to not only recruit, but also retain highly effective teachers?
In order to recruit well, first on the recruiting end, let me just say it's really important for us to expand our recruitment footprint outside of Pennsylvania. Part of the reason why is when we want to recruit Black teachers in particular, I think about 50% of the Black teachers nationally come out of historically Black colleges and universities.
They do.
And since the lion's share of those colleges and universities are south of here, and then a few out to the west, we've got to go to them, and we've got to make the case of why people ought to come to Philadelphia. In terms of retaining those teachers when we get them here, there are three things that I want to point out. Number one, how we pay people and their benefits matters, but it is not the end all be all by itself. We know that teachers leave the profession not just because of their pay, but because of their level of support. We've got to say, I want to go work for someone like Shana Terrell because she's such a visionary principal. I know she's going to wrap her arms around me. She's going to make sure that I get the professional development I need. She's going to help coach me to get better. I can count it. We're going to be in this together. And so people don't just leave school districts. A lot of times they leave their immediate supervisor.
They leave leaders. Yep.
They leave leaders. And so we've got to train and prepare and provide that professional development about how to coach, model, and support your direct reports as well as other people in schools. And professional development is so important because if you think about it, for teachers and other employees, because we spend north of 70% of our budget in most school districts on people and benefits. We're a people-intensive organization. And so we have to make sure that every year we're providing meaningful, job-embedded, ongoing professional development. And we've got to differentiate for my needs. Tony may need something different than Shana, and we've got to make sure we meet that.
For sure. Definitely the differentiation. I hear teach someone if I got to go to another meeting that is just not relevant to me, or I have to sit in another professional development that I sat in last year, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Let,
So
let, and
that's
let me just
important.
and let me give you a good example of that. A on the ground example. If you go to Mary McLeod Bethune School right here in North Philly,
Yeah. Shout out to Principal Bradley.
they got a star principal, Dr. Katance Bradley. Now, she's worked with our friend Sharif El Mekki to both recruit and mentor teachers. And I think that's so important. I was at her school one day and I had the good fortune to sit down. And I don't think I've ever seen a school with that many male, particularly black male teachers on a staff. We got in a circle and just had a conversation one day, and I looked around and I said, wow, this is the power of effective recruitment and retention. So when you said that, I immediately thought of Bethune School. And because it takes really forward thinking, equity focused, and aggressive leadership to do that kind of recruitment and retention effort.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love that Principal Bradley has done in her school was really create those mentorship opportunities for the black males. So that's an environment where you walk into, you feel safe, you feel supported,
Yes,
and you're not the only. I think a lot of times we are dealing with situations, especially black men. And Dr. Wallace, you'll know this best, right? Where you are the
all my
only,
life. Yes,
right? When you walk into a space of education and you are the only. So a lot of things fall on your shoulders squarely on you, or people want you to fix things. I need you to talk to these boys. I need you to do this or do that as the black man. Or I'm pretty sure you've been stereotyped a lot.
yes.
That's why, again, shout out to you for being a leader of a school district.
Well,
Because,
well, I appreciate that. I'll tell you where the real work gets done is when you get down to the school and that principal level. Those are the folk that really make this district run, them and their staffs. That's why last week when I attended the Principal Lindback Awards, and I saw those principals, including those distinguished African American males standing on that stage to be recognized, I was sure proud of this school district in this city.
yes, I love that. And Philly has been fighting a good fight to increase the number of Black teachers within the school district. Because Pennsylvania itself, no, a little while ago, I think the numbers are still the same, but very sad numbers. I think it was 96% white um,
Yes,
teaching force in Pennsylvania. But I know Philadelphia
yes.
has been fighting a good fight to increase the number of Black children. I mean, Black teachers that we have for all of our children. I would love for you just to talk a little bit about what the presence of a Black teacher can do for all children.
The presence of Black teachers in a school improves the learning experience for both Black, white, and other children. Let me be crystal clear. All children benefit from having diversity, gender, race, ethnicity, etc. So when you think about a school like Martin Luther King High School, where I saw a story on the national news, it may have been NBC, I don't remember exactly. It was NBC, I believe. And all the Black men who are teaching core classes at that high school, I said, all right, good Dr. Principal Keisha Wilkins, good job. This is really fantastic and exciting. Um, where freshman students see so many African American males in particular, but all children benefit. And certainly, um, students who see teachers who look like them, the research says, have a higher graduation rate. They do better academically. They are likely in some classes, depending on circumstances, to have better attendance. The gold standard is we want our kids to come to school no less than 90%, no less, preferably more, but no less than 90% of every month and 90% of the school year. And so representation matters because there's something about, even when schools were, before schools integrated, well, they never really did fully integrate, let's be honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
Before
Mm-hmm.
the law changed to
Yes.
say that we should or shall integrate schools in
Yep.
these desegregate schools in 1954. I often hear from an older generation this perception that while the resources were subpar, used textbooks, inadequate school facilities. There was this community ethos of respect and expect. I respect you as my community member because we live in the same communities, and I expect better and the best from you. And I think that's something that we want to figure out how to continue to reignite that kind of support and that kind of ethos that we used to find in schools across the board when we had a lot of Black teachers in particular. Now, I do want to also note, Shane, if I may, earlier this school year, I attended a session at a lecture at Temple University at the invitation of Dean Monica Sheila Williams, and we heard from the author of a Jim Crow's Pink Slip by Leslie
Yes.
Fenwick, who was the dean of the College of Education at Howard University. Published by Harvard. Her book is published by Harvard University, but it talks about how we used to have 100,000 plus Black teachers and principals throughout the South and other areas pre-1954. And she makes the case for the first time at this level on the historical record that a good number of those teachers, she makes the case, were demoted, illegally fired, or pushed out. And that kind of served as a beginning of this lack of teachers of color. And I say that because I don't want us to think that we're in the situation we're in now just because all of a sudden the public doesn't believe in education anymore.
Absolutely.
Some of this was started a long time ago and was very intentional. But we've got to, however we got to where we are, we've got to figure out how to get ourselves in a better place and it significantly improve our recruitment efforts for teachers as a whole, and particularly for Black and brown teachers.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because what Ms. Fenwick draws is the systemic problem of how we got here. Because if you don't examine that, people would just think that the Black community woke up one day and said, we don't want to be teachers. And that's just not what happened. It's just not true and not an accurate depiction of how the number of Black teachers decreased. So I appreciate you bringing up that point because it's true.
And I can't mention Leslie Fenwick without referencing Kamika Royal.
Yes, Kamika.
Dr. Royal. Let me get it right here. who wrote specifically about a very fine history of Philadelphia in particular. And so I enjoyed reading her work and learning about all the different phases of what happened here, specifically in Philadelphia relative to our teaching force and how we're situated now. So kudos to her as well.
Yes. Shout out to Dr. Real. She is a friend of the show. She has been on. So shout out to her and her book. I want to switch gears here a little bit. You guys have been working to do what I would dare say some innovative things and some things that may not be so popular within the school district of Philadelphia. And one of them is you guys ended the practice of leveling. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is? Because I think this would be a great topic for debate. Because some agree, some don't disagree. But what is it, and why did you end it, and how is this going to be beneficial for students and teachers?
Well, since you mentioned innovation, if you'll give me just 30 seconds to say, we're innovating also in how we recruit and retain teachers. Instead of just the typical, we do a career fair, people show up, put out a job advertisement. We're doing what we find people do in the private sector. We're actually using LinkedIn as a tool to source for talent, just like you would find in a private company. We're also figuring out how to tap into the Divine Nine, our fraternities and sororities.
Yes.
I've asked our talent team to figure out how we get represented at their regional and national conferences and local conferences so that we can get in front of all members of that Divine Nine organization, of which I'm a member of one of those very fine fraternities. The first one, I might just say.
Is it Alpha?
This wasn't the purpose to just talk about Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
The Ice Cold? You wanted to shout out the Ice Cold. You did.
So I thank you for the opportunity to do that. And then to your point directly about leveling, Ms. Terrell, leveling is a process. Basically, we allocate X number of teachers to schools based on the student population that we anticipate being there at the beginning of the year. Now, our enrollment projections are usually pretty good, but they're never perfect. So in any given year, we'll have a number of teachers who we have to move after the 21st day of school. Next school year, we are going to discontinue moving teachers because the number of students is below our projections. We don't think it's a good idea to move teachers 20 days into the school year. Number one, it's not good for our children. They have to start all over. They've made relationships. They built a relationship with their teacher and their peers, and they have to move. Number two, it's not good for the teacher in that school because they've built relationships with their students. They've got stability. Now they've got to go start over. The reason we're able to do this is we found ways to reallocate dollars in the central office budget from the central office to schools. We found ways to take energy savings that we've realized in the district and put those dollars directly into schools. And that's how we're going to pay for the elimination of the leveling. I know we did a budget survey during the budget development process, and 68% of all the individuals who completed the survey asked us to take a look at that and to do something differently. And I'm glad we were able to be responsive to our school staffs and students and teachers and parents and others. We had some elected officials who asked us to take a look at this. So I'm glad we were able to, we will deliver in this upcoming school year. It's the right thing to do.
I'm excited that you guys were actually able to do it, meaning you took a look at the budget, you found the money. A lot of times when folks need to make those kind of changes and eliminate those kind of practices, the funding is always the excuse of why. So the fact that you guys took a hard look at your budget, found where to move and shift dollars to make the appropriate choice for kids, kudos to you guys for that. That's
We're
big.
reallocating $8.8 million in the upcoming budget, and we'll do so annually.
I had a little joke
so
on mine, like, where y'all get that money from? Where that was hiding at, okay?
Now let me be clear now. I want your viewers to hear this. Mm-hmm. We just don't have $8 million sitting over under the rock somewhere. Mm-hmm. This school district is being very good stewards of the public's tax dollars, federal, state, and local tax dollars. Number one, we have the best financial grade investment credit rating that we've had in a half century in the school district of Philadelphia.
Shout out, big deal.
Shout out.
Yes.
Number two, last year, both Moody's and Fitch Financial Services upgraded our credit outlook from stable to positive. And earlier this year, both of those entities reaffirmed that our positive credit outlook. And what that says is they know that if we don't get more money from the state in the next 2 years, we are going off a fiscal cliff. They know that. But they said that notwithstanding, we see the district and the board and superintendent and staff as being good stewards of making good decisions, good investments with our tax dollars. The third thing I'll say in terms of investing the resources is, as you well know, earlier this year, Harvard and Stanford issued a recovery scorecard report. First, this was the first post-COVID study to ask the question, how are America's children doing? And among the large urban school districts, long story short, the study covered 60% of the U.S. student population, and it covered 30 states. It wasn't everybody, but at least 30 states and 60% of the entire public school population in this country. And the study found that the school district of Philadelphia had the best rebound performance in 3rd through 8th grade math last year among large urban districts in the country. And on the reading side, the Chicago public schools had the best rebound performance. The school district of Philadelphia was second among the large urban school districts. So I say that to note that our students, our teachers are working hard. We're making progress. We've got a long way to go, but I am sure encouraged by those data.
I know people are like, so what's the secret sauce, Dr. Watlington? How you how you getting all this stuff done that haven't been able to been done in half a century? What is the secret sauce?
Well, on the finances, the district's financial footing began improving years ago, and kudos to Dr. Bill Height and my predecessor and others. This district was on the verge of a real financial catastrophe about a decade ago, and so I can't say enough good words about what folks whoever sat in this chair and what board members did a decade ago, because they put us in a position for such a time as this. Now, we've got some budget challenges, but we don't have that major deficit situation that we had a decade ago. Now, on the academic improvements based on last year's test scores, we're very clear in the school district. The number one thing we need to invest in are highly qualified, well supported, stable teachers. My number one focus is not tutoring, it is not mentoring, it is not technology. It is highly qualified, well supported, stable teachers over time. Tutors, mentors, technology all just kind of supplement and kind of provide some extra supports to students and teachers. But teachers are number one. And then number two is we've got to the secret sauce, as you describe it, is principals are number two in the research. As we need highly qualified, well supported, stable principals because they recruit, onboard, hire, onboard, and retain teachers at the school building level. Three, we need the best curriculum. What kids learn in the classroom really matters. They need high time on task. And in a number of schools, we want the school year to be a little longer and the day to be a little longer. And then number four, it may not sound like rocket science. The other part of that sweet sauce, we have to work with our parents as equal partners in this education enterprise.
Right. Yes, for sure.
They are our children's first teachers.
Yes, they're the experts
parents
on their kids.
Parents and caregivers.
For sure, experts on their kids. Listen, I'm down with this secret sauce. This was a good little mix you got going on there. For sure. Right.
Glad to hear that.
No, it is. And I think that your first two parts of your recipe that you designed, investment in people. And I think that sometimes in education, that like goes over because there's a lot of conversation about curriculum where there's a lot of blame placed on children. But I think talking about the investment in the right people to lead and teach our children is super important. But the stressing of how highly qualified, effective, but the stability that you talk about, because if you have people like a revolving door every 1, 2, 3 years, there's no stability for children.
Absolutely. Now, I've talked about the secret sauce, as you call it, those high levers that really move student achievement. Mm-hmm. I do want to note that I'm not mentioning everything we do in the school district, but everything that we are focused on over the next 5 years is clearly outlined in our strategic plan, Accelerate Philly. We've identified the key strategic actions for the next 5 years that we know will result in improved student outcomes. And so we're excited about Accelerate Philly. It was approved last spring unanimously by the Board of Education. I certainly appreciate that. And we're looking forward to our even better days ahead of us.
Again, really good changes, some innovative changes. But as I stated for the last question, some controversial ones. So I know this is one I think that Mayor Parker definitely agree with you on. But you've expressed the thought of possibly piloting year-round school.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that's a touchy subject for kids and for teachers, sometimes for parents. What would that look like for students and teachers?
Well, first, let me say that I'm excited for the mayor's vision about year-round extended year education because it is the right vision. There are so many children who need more time and support. Given the time, all of our children can be successful. If you give children those key ingredients: highly qualified teacher, well-supported, stable teacher, highly qualified, stable principal, the best curriculum. You partner with parents and caregivers as equal partners, and then you give us the opportunity to have more time. It's a way we can really elevate performance. Now, who's to say that the school year should be 180 days? There are places in Asia where kids go to school 240 days. There are places where people do less. Some kids may need less time. Some may need more. In the upcoming year, we're going to look carefully at the after school time to make sure that we're providing co-curricular programming and support that aligns to reading, math, science, etc. That's fun, that's engaging, and we want our kids to have the best. The best example model I can think, and in the next year we want to pilot a extended year calendar, not just the after school where kids are in school till well after 6 or close to time to go home. We want to have a pilot in a number of schools, the actual extended year-round calendar where we eliminate the summer slide because kids are in school during the summer and don't have these long breaks. You know what the best example I've ever seen of this is? And I think you may be familiar with this a bit. It's the Harlem Children's Zone, led by Jeff Canada.
Yes.
We're going to visit. I've been there to visit, and we're going back in the next few weeks with the delegation to really look at how they do it. Those are, at the Harlem Children's Zone, kids are in school from the early morning till 6 p.m. and about nearly half the kids are there on Saturdays. But guess what? They've all but closed the achievement gap between Black and white kids when you look at the data in New York State.
Yes. So you are talking about what we like to call place-based cradle-to-career work.
Place-based cradle-to-career work located right in the center of some public housing communities in Harlem, New York.
Yes, 97 zone block.
97 zone block.
That Mr. Canada focused on. And made some really important changes for that community in terms of wraparound services. So when you're talking about kids being in, school from 6 to 6, it's beyond just the classroom.
Yes.
When you talk about how to support and what to do. So
absolutely.
Making those innovative changes, I think, again, and your forward thinking on that and using that as an example in a vision, I think could really shift and change the landscape of Philadelphia.
I often hear the voice of the mayor saying, we ought to identify what are the key community supports available in a 3 to 5 mile radius of every school.
Absolutely.
But here's the kicker. Here's the key. How do we connect the dots to make sure that the children in said school benefit from the resources in said community? And I can think of no place in this country that does that better than the Harlem Children's Zone.
Oh,
that is place cradle to career approach.
Yep. And that is the true example of what we mean when we say collective impact. So
collective impact.
Yes. I love that you said that Mayor Parker talks about that 3 to 5 mile radius, because all of the partners, meaning public sector, private sector, nonprofit, even banks, universities, in the 3 to 5 mile radius in the school, how do you all work together to have a collective impact on this community? Instead, we are, working disjointed or in silos.
Right.
When you talk
the opposite of the siloed approach is when we're all working on the same work, not just the same work, but the same right work.
Absolutely. So shout out to you again, that forward thinking. You want to
push, come.
Yeah, well, you want to push collective impact and cradle to career. I love that. And I love that for the School District of Philadelphia. I'm actually excited about you guys doing and starting that work. That gets me hyped.
All right, wonderful.
And you talk about the achievement gap that was closed in New York. I would love to hear your perspective a little bit as we wind down on the achievement gap in education. There's a lot of debate when we start talking about the achievement gap, tons of debate. But do you think the achievement gap is fueled by the opportunity gap and access? So just not having poor Black children, not having resources. Because one of the things you talk about Harlem Children's Zone, their main goal is to eliminate poverty, specifically in Central Harlem, right? So poverty is really looking at what resources do children need to be on a road to generational wealth. But from your perspective, what's fueling the achievement gap?
Well, that the achievement gap, and we use the term, and I'm just as guilty of it as anybody else, even as superintendent. We throw that term around loosely, but the achievement gap is really at its core an opportunity gap because whereas talent is equally distributed in Philadelphia, talent is equally distributed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the United States. Access and opportunity are absolutely not equally distributed. So when we make the playing field level and the rules public, more people can compete in the United States. When we go back to 1966, when James Coleman first coined that term achievement gap, they wanted to know, how do you explain differential in test scores? Well, part of that differential is uh, in 1954, you had some really, really smart, bright folks coming out of segregated schools who couldn't go to predominantly white institutions, no matter what their test score was. So, what difference did it make? Fast forward a few years, if the pipeline of teachers goes down by 66%, who decides who gets the certified teachers? Who decides who gets the best quality resources? Who decides who gets what and who doesn't? So all those things are important. And we don't share the quality and the resources equitably in a lot of places. In addition, when kids do out of school learning, field trips to London and Paris and to Johannesburg and to Africa and Asia and other places around the world, they're getting an out of school learning that a kid who never leaves 10 blocks from their neighborhood don't get. Some kids have lots of books in their homes, and other kids, like Tony, had none except for a set of World Book encyclopedias my mother bought for me. And that's why I read them cover to cover, because I didn't have anything else in my home to read. But we know there's 50 plus years of research about how we make those connections and how we address those opportunity gaps. So, as much as I'm focused on elevating test scores, and by the way, the test scores improved in 13 out of 15, 13 out of 17 areas here in the school district last year. Uh, I do want to note that there are some things that our kids are more than a test score, and that learning is very dynamic, and there are lots of ways that we get after it. And so there's a lot of ways that we can measure people's intellect and talent and skills, not limited to one test score. So I think that in summary, we are much better served by referring to opportunity gaps than achievement gaps. Because compare Tony to where Tony started. Don't compare Tony to someone who has a reality that's completely opposite, polar opposite of mine. I think that's a legitimate point.
It is. So, all in all, right, we have to look to our youth as the future. And the only way we're going to build this teaching force is to invest in our young people. One of the number one things, especially with doing our research and trying to build programs at the Center for Black Educator Development for young people to join the teaching force, one of the number one things we hear young people say is like, I would never become a teacher. And when you ask them why, they say because of the current state of education. Like, my teacher doesn't look happy. I would never want to be at that job. I would never want to have that profession. Like, why? She looks miserable. Or I don't like the way my teacher is treated inside school. Like, again, they're not treated like heroes. So what are some of the things that we can do to make this profession more attractive to our young people?
Well, we can do several things to make our teaching profession more attractive to our young people. One, we ought to keep our focus on paying teachers salaries that they deserve. Number two, I think we've got to talk up the profession, and we've got to thank a teacher. Thank all teachers. Thank Black teachers. Thank our CTE teachers. When I think about what's happening in career technical education and the pathways for graduation for kids who may get a 2-year degree or may get a high school diploma and get some post-secondary training and be able to go into a $60,000 or $70,000 a year job, We've got to thank our teachers. It's just that simple. I'd say hug a teacher, but
Hey,
as a
HR.
teacher myself, I used to be a teacher, and I used to say, all right, keep your hands to yourself in the classroom. But outside of school, you can hug a teacher too. Let people know they are appreciated. And here's what we should not do. The next time somebody's talking about the teaching profession, I don't know, please don't say, why are you doing that? I couldn't deal with these bad children. If I had $1 for every time somebody said that to me, I'd be a rich man. And it is so not true. Our young people, even the ones who present some challenges for us sometimes, those who I would call who are a little bit hard to love, they're waiting to see if you're going to stick with me. They're waiting to see if that teacher is going to wrap their arms around them if they really care. And thank teachers and let them know we really appreciate them. I think that's really, really important.
For sure. Listen, you segued into my last piece of question here. It
And
was
you can
really not
also donate. You can also donate your treasure, so you can get your time, talent, and treasure. Treasure, donate to the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia. They do a lot of work supporting teacher projects and classroom level support. So donate also to the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia on behalf of the school district.
That's right. You better ask for that dollar to circulate. I'm not mad about it. But just our last piece here before we wrap, we always give our guests here opportunity to thank a Black teacher on this podcast for sure. So I want to give you the floor, the spotlight to thank some Black teachers.
I want to thank a number of Black teachers across the school district of Philadelphia. In my mind, I've got some names I want to mention, but then I'll miss some of them. So I'm going to thank them in the aggregate in total. Thank you for what you do. I want to encourage you to stay positive, stay motivated, don't get weary on the days where things get tough, times get tough. Reach out to your lifeline, to another teacher. Reach out to your principal, to your assistant superintendent. That doesn't work, call Dr. Jermaine Dawson, your deputy superintendent for academics. And if you need to call Tony Watlington, superintendent of school district of Philadelphia, I'm happy to be your partner as well.
I love that. I love that. Dr. Watlington, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure having you here and love the things that you're doing in Philadelphia. And again, we're looking forward to what you're doing. And we want Philly to serve as a blueprint and an example of how to be innovative in the school district. So we thank you.
Thank you so much. It's my high honor to be with you today.
Thank you. Shout out to all my co-conspirators watching today. You have been listening to and watching Building the Black Educator Pipeline, a show hosted by the Center for Black Educator Development with the help of our partners at Brightbeam. So please subscribe and like wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We'll see you here again next time for another episode. Peace, everybody.